There are already people living and working on the land, the pastoral community, and I think those people are hugely important in the management of the Eyre Basin, its environment and biodiversity conservation. Where we are here in Inaminka Regional Reserve, it's a prime example of how biodiversity conservation and cattle production can work in conjunction and cooperation. I'm Steve Eldridge. I'm a wildlife biologist who works as a consultant based in Alice Springs. I first moved up to Alice Springs in the mid-90s, working for a private consultant for 6 months or so, and then Parks and Wildlife Commission. I was there for 12 years, and for the past 6 or 7 years I've been working as a privateer in the consultant field. When I first moved up, I was employed by the Arid Lands Environment Centre to run a fauna survey of the Finke flood-out area, and that particular area occurs on Andado and New Crown stations, just at the bottom of the Northern Territory. And both of those areas, they're cattle properties, and they've been, there's been cattle grazing there for nearly 100 years. And we were finding species, that hadn't been seen for, 30, 50 years. And that's when it sort of hit home to me, I guess, how important it was, that the habitat hasn't really been modified, and there were still fauna living there, fairly rare and things that aren't seen very often. That fauna survey that we did was just a snapshot in time. We were finding species like the mulgara and the leather-winged kites and plains rats and thick-billed grass wrens, things that very rarely seen and quite close to boars and with obvious cattle impacts, and it just struck me as quite amazing that over the 100 years that the cattle have been there, that these species still occurred there. And the obvious people to be involved in that monitoring and then the ongoing management is people actually living and working and making a living off that land. Where we are here in Inaminka Regional Reserve, there are exclusion zones that have been identified where that are important to migratory species or that are important to threatened species. Then there are other zones, still important for biodiversity, but less important than these other highly valuable areas for biodiversity. So those areas have been identified from where grazing is allowed. At the moment I'm working with the South Australian Arid Lands NRM board under contract. We're looking at the impacts of 1080 baiting on a whole range of issues, right from the cattle production side of things right through to the biodiversity. Working on 5 properties now. We've divided each property into 2 basically, where one half we bait dingoes, we control dingoes, and the other half is left unbaited. The dingoes are left alone just to their own devices. There's very little information, a lot of it's just anecdotal. Some people think that by baiting dingoes you may not have any impact on cattle production at all, maybe even reduce calving rates. Running projects or research projects like this, we can get more information and get more of an accurate picture of what's actually going on. We're preg testing the cattle in each of the treatment areas, actually measuring how many cows are pregnant and then going back and counting the number of calves in that mob, so we can get an accurate picture of what the calving rates are and how they, the 2 treatment areas compare where we're baiting and where we're not baiting. Yep. I just love working in this area, and I think I'm here to stay. All of that variability and unpredictability, it's just amazing to me, and I learn something every day when I'm out here working in the bush, and just to be able to to communicate results with graziers and livestock producers, and getting information fed back to me as well. I think that's a really rewarding part of my job. The main thing that strikes me about the Eyre Basin is the lack, or the lack of habitat modification that there's been over the years, and I think we need to maintain that. Managing it for cattle production is a good thing because there are still opportunities to manage the biodiversity in the area, working together to achieve biodiversity goals as well as production.